Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we are discussing the 2020 redesign of a watch that originally bowed in 2005. This is the Lange Söhne Lange 1 time zone in white gold, and it retains the former watch's size. It is 41.9 millimeters, so like the 2005 time zone, it uses the original Grand Lange 1 case size and puts it to good use with a dial that is chock-a-block with information. So at 41.9 millimeters in diameter, it's 11.4 millimeters thick, and from lug tip to lug tip, 49.7 millimeters, with a broad and modern 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. I often say that because one of the hallmarks of modern watch design is a broader spacing between the lugs. On my 16 centimeter circumference wrist, this watch is pushing the limits, being almost 50 millimeters from lug to lug. It fills up my wrist, and I probably wouldn't want to wear this watch on a wrist smaller than my size, 16 centimeter circumference. If your wrist is oval, you might be able to pull it off on a 15 centimeter wrist, but I think 16 is ideal. That said, the watch is quite thin, and with the domed bezel, it slides easily underneath the cuff. All right, the strap. Exactly as you'd expect from Lange. Large rectangular scale alligator leather, gloss finish, a little bit of bolstering to give it volume, monotone stitch, folded edge, the highest quality. On the bottom, black calfskin, and you can see this is a brand new Lange factory strap in outstanding condition. We have a Lange folding clasp, something not universally featured on historical Lange watches. It's a nice feature to have because not only does it add a little bit of weight and richness to the tactile and sensual aspects of the watch experience, but it also makes it harder to drop your watch when you're putting it on or taking it off. The case is very familiar. This is where you see the fewest changes from the prior model. We still have a domed bezel with a sheer vertical outer face. It's all polished. The lug flanks are polished. The lug hoods are polished. The case back lip is polished. We have pusher adjusters that are used for triggering the setting of the world time display, as well as the double-digit date. So we've got the world time and the panorama datum, and they're both a pleasure to operate, a lot like a fine column wheel chronograph. The mid-case is satinated, and if you look at the pushers, you can see they actually have a combination of satin outer faces and then polished flanks. We have a Lange branded crown on the other side. This watch is white gold, so it has a nice satisfying heft to it, but it is double precious metal, as the dial itself is made of sterling silver that is then galvanized black. So let me demonstrate how this works. If you want to set the watch, at some point, you're going to have to press the outer trigger, and then you can see how I'm holding down the time zone switch, and as I manipulate the times, the two time zones move in sync when I turn counterclockwise, but as long as I'm holding that trigger, while I'm turning clockwise, the secondary time zone will adjust its minutes indicator, but its hour hand will stay static. So when you were adjusting the crown in its outer position and turning clockwise while holding the time zone jumper, it will freeze the position of that secondary time zone. So that's how that works. And that's how the time zone has worked since the original one in 2005. There have been changes since 2005, and the big ones are on the dial. The AM/PM indicator, that is the day-night semicircles, are now coaxial with the hands. You can see them located at the center of the primary time and the reference time. There are, of course, different cities on the reference ring than we had back in 2005. Charting the changes on world time watches is always one of the highlights of my job. But I will say this, it's not a world timer in the strictest sense. It is more of a highly sophisticated dual time watch that does the math for you. Let me demonstrate. As I change the reference city, which is indicated by this little white gold index, that's my date jumper right there, you could see how as I change my reference city from London to Berlin to Beirut, the secondary time zone is making adjustments, and it's that simple. Now, like I said, the dial is made of sterling silver, so it is a disc of precious metal that is then galvanized black. The hands, the indices, the Roman numerals, and the frame for the date are all 18-karat white gold, so they will not tarnish or oxidize over time. We have a power reserve indicator. We have up and down, and the manual wind watch has a 3-day power reserve courtesy of 2 mainspring barrels. It does feature a hacking or stop seconds function. You'll appreciate that there's a small constant second, so you can set the watch to the second. It will freeze when you withdraw the crown for setting. There is a small index inside of the index. So the easiest way to tell this apart from the previous time zone, the coaxial day-night indicators for the 2 time zones, and then this little index. And the way this works is it highlights your reference city. I always keep trying to set the watch by the date. But when you reach a city that uses daylight savings time, the index in there turns red. So it will let you know whether the city has alternate summer and winter time or not. And when you see a white index, that means it is conventional. When you see red, that means it has alternate summer and winter times. Okay, for once, I'm going to use the date indicator and cycling system to reveal that this watch has a wonderful typeface for its double-digit date. The panorama datum, a signature of the brand today, originally donated to Lange in its early days, back in the early 90s, by Jaeger LeCoultre. This mechanism was originally a JLC patent. Now on the reverse side, we have a new movement for this generation of time zone. This is caliber 141.1, which means work on it started in 2014. It was the first movement started that year, and this is the first revision of it. It has a beautiful structure for the world time adjustment, and you could see these handsome pocket watch and clock inspired wheels, as well as a second freehand engraved structure. You can see banknotes scrolling and a lovely little flower motif surrounding the blued screw that anchors it in place. We also have a freehand engraved balance cock, which includes a black polished swan's neck fine adjustment. There's also a black polished cover to the escape wheel. We have here both black polished and fire blued screws, and the movement, which beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour, is free sprung with fine adjustments made using the swan's neck, but more often using variable inertia bolts on the balance structure itself. All of this is water resistant down to 30 meters. Pivots on 38 joules. It is adjusted in 5 positions, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. It uses German silver, a nickel copper zinc alloy for the bridges and plates. That's why they have a golden hue. It's the copper. We have the freehand engraving, which is done without any lathes or tools other than a burin. Lange is a bit of a specialist in that. There is mirrored anglage on the edge of the bridges, satination on the wheels. Engine turning on the base plate, solarization, you can just barely see it on the barrel. The watch has 2 barrels. We have pivot jewels set in golden chaton fixed by screws, a nod to the pocket watch era of Lange watchmaking. And then we have this large 3/4 bridge over the train and the barrels, which is another nod to pocket watches made in Glashütte, as Lange in East Germany, state of Saxony, city of Glashütte, has been making watches in one form or another since the 19th century, but I need to emphasize that the modern Lange, as we know it today, was created by family scion Walter Lange in 1990, meaning they have effectively become the German Patek Philippe in the briefest of time periods, only 32 years. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.